Hey folks, this is Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at this knife, the F723 by Enlan, and I got mine at GearBest. And those of you who like buck knives can tell that this is a lot like a certain buck knife. Well, you've got the nobleman and the colleague. The nobleman is slightly bigger and the colleague is slightly smaller with the very similar shape. Blade, grind, handle shape generally, pocket clip even, very much the same. So that's where China got the idea for this knife. SanRenMu also has a version of this knife. I think it's the 7023. Just slightly different from this one, but not much at all. Very similar again. Before we get into the review, I want to make an announcement. GearBest is having their 5th anniversary in just about a week's time. Today, they are starting their celebrations. They've got a special sale. They've got games. They've got coupons. They've got prizes you can win, draws you can enter, gift bags, surprise gift bags you can purchase for much less than retail cost. And, you know, I played one game today where they had these bags of things dropping down and you had to click on them and you can win a prize and you can win coupons and all kinds of really good things. If you've never shopped at GearBest, why don't you take the opportunity, look down below in the description, grab my links, and take a look at the big sale that they're having to celebrate 5 years of being online. And GearBest is the main place where I've gotten the majority of the knives that I've reviewed. Maybe not the majority of the knives, as in more than half of the knives, but I've gotten more knives from GearBest than from any other single source on the history of this channel, which is almost 3 years old. At the end of, is it the end of March that I started? I don't even remember. I might be only a few weeks away from my anniversary. I better check that out because I want to celebrate that with you guys. But anyways, for me, it'll be 3 years. Right now for GearBest, it is 5. Check them out. And I think you're going to be pleased at what they have to offer. And now let's get to the tabletop and take a good close look at the Enlan F723 coming at you right now. So there's the Enlan knife, and as I was saying, SanRenMu has another knife as well. Very much the same size, very much the same blade grind. You can see, you know, the body screws here are a little closer together than on the Enlan. Otherwise, very similar. And when you turn it over, you find that they're very similar again. The SanRenMu has got the cutout for the frame lock arm on the outside, which is very common. Enlan's got it on the inside this time. Very, very similar. The sizes are almost identical, just slightly different. The SanRenMu's got a slightly, about by a millimeter, you know, about a 1/16 of an inch longer, but they come out to be very much the same thing. Right now at GearBest, this knife, the SanRenMu, is not available, but you can register for a notification so that when they get it in stock, they'll send it to you. They've got a couple of different body options. It's not just the stainless steel. When I did my review of this knife, I mentioned that, you know, I thought it was kind of ugly that it says stainless steel folding knife right on the knife right there. So I made this. This is one of the same knives. I got 2 of them. And what I did was I took that scale off and I put it in a stone washing machine and came out with this, which looks a whole lot nicer than this, in my opinion. The buck has got that sort of system where they've got this shape, almost like a bolster on the front. And so if you want to look at those, look at those. And this is what we've got today. We've got a drop point blade, hollow grind with a big forward, I'm not sure what to call it. The way the grind hits this blade, this hollow grind, you know, has the ricasso come out along the spine of the blade very far. Great big sharpener's choil right here. You can see right there, if you're looking at this section right here where that's cut out, that it takes a long while for the steel to get thin enough so that it's the proper thinness. And that's because a hollow grind, especially this hollow grind, has got such a gradual wave going up that it takes a while. So that has to be that big. You can put the tip of your finger in there and use that for doing more delicate jobs, a little better grip, however you want to hold it. It's comfortable in the hand. Like I sometimes have been putting my finger right there like that to cut some things, just the side of my knuckle. Most of it's up here on the steel of the handle, but just a little bit in that little bit of a sharpener's choil. Hollow grinds are actually very beneficial in that you can sharpen the edge a number of times before the steel starts getting thicker. Unlike, a regular flat grind where every single time you sharpen the knife, this edge is getting thicker behind the grind. So I like that an awful lot. There's a really good tip on this for doing precision work if you need to. As you can see, you've got the distal taper starting right away because the hollow grind is ground on that angle right there. You can just see the edge getting thinner and thinner all the way down, almost like a distal taper, but it's because the hollow grind is on this angle instead of going straight across with the knife. Like a lot of knives do, the hollow grind is like a bowl cut out this way, and it's sideways across on this knife. Kind of odd, kind of unique, kind of special. I kind of like it. We got thumb studs on here. The knife, opens and closes quite well using those thumb studs. Either the right hand or the left hand has no problem with that. Works quite well. We've got a tip down pocket clip, but it's put on with 3 screws, so it's a very firm hold. And this pocket clip is almost identical to the buck version. And it holds onto a pocket very, very well and does a fairly deep carry. Let me demonstrate that right now. So it slides into the pocket all the way up to there, and so you just got a little bit sticking out, just enough. You've got all that texture from the screws that it's just enough to grab on very easily, get a good grip on the fingers. Some people, on some pants, depending on the size, the extra coin pocket that you have right there is big enough to hold some of the knives. At least on my pants it is. So I don't mind that pocket clip. I don't mind tip down. Almost 2 years ago, I recorded a video on the debate between tip up and tip down. So if you haven't been with my channel that long, you might want to check that out. And on that video, I basically argued that really it doesn't make much of a difference tip up or tip down in terms of how much performance you can get out of the knife from the time you want to get your knife out till the time it's in your hand ready to be used. There's some people saying that, tip down is so much slower. Well, no, it's not. It's slower, but by a tiny, tiny amount. Almost imperceptible. Anyhow, that's a different subject. The knife here, the body is screwed together by the 2 body screws back here, and then the fixed pin pivot screw, which I really like, up here. Now, you can't take the pivot screw off unless you take the pocket clip off as well, but you can do slight adjustments if you have a little blade play. This knife has 0 blade play, side to side, up and down. It's nice and solid. The stop pin's beautiful. It's a pin that goes all the way through the body, but it's held in place because of the pivot screws and the body screws, and it works very, very well. The detent is quite good. It doesn't just suck it in, though. It just kind of, just at the last second, is a tiny little bit there, if you can see it. Right there, just a tiny bit. So I would like the detent to be a little stronger, but it's not a big deal. Remember, this is a smaller knife, mid-size to small or small to mid-size knife. And it looks quite good in the hand that way. I like this darker gray. It's a really nice look, in my opinion. All the edges are rounded. The screws are flush. The body screws back here. The body screws have a little bit of that hourglass shape on them, and they're quite good. Just like the buck one that has no lanyard hole, the copy has no lanyard hole as well. It's a good looking knife. Lots of access to the release arm right there. As you can see, a little bit of jimping on it so that you can be sure that you've got it right in hand. Alignment when it's closed is off. Not great. It's not touching the sides, but it's a little bit off and it can be moved around a little bit. Lockup, you've got it at about 70% lockup. Let me get this focused here. There you go. You can see how lockup is about 70% across. The thing is, the ones by SanRenMu are exactly the same, both of them. Here's the other one. You know, the same thing. I think that's just the standard that they have for these knives, that, you know, it goes most of the way across, totally engaged, and it does have some wear, some life on it. And when you think about the price of this knife, right now at GearBest, this thing is just under $6 US. Under. It's what, $5.89. Shipping to US, there's no shipping. If you ship it to Canada, they've got like 50-60 cents shipping. The price in Canada is $8. The price in Europe is 5.25 euros, and British pounds, it's 4.60. So it's a good price for what you get. No, it's a great price for what you get. And you got a good look. Take a good look at this blade again. Hopefully you can see the things that I'm seeing in the LCD screen. Nice grind lines. The final grind is a little bit wavy. Like the grind angle here is different than it is here, which is slightly different than there. But it's, you know, it's okay. It's not super sharp, but it's okay. The first time I sharpen it, I'll clean it up very nicely. And as you can see on this SanRenMu, you know, the edge does clean up very nicely, and you get a very good sharp edge quite easily on this 8CR13 MOV. Rockwell hardness of about 58 on this steel. It's a really good budget steel, and I like it quite a lot. And let's go over all of the dimensions now. We've got a weight of 77 grams, 2.7 ounces, quite light. The factory edge sharpness, 275, so not great, but not super terrible either. And again, that's the factory edge. It sharpens up pretty well. The cutting edge length is 5.94 centimeters, 2.34 inches. The blade length, so tip of the blade to the closest spot on that stainless steel handle, 6.69 centimeters, 2.63 inches, well within any 3-inch law. If you can have a locking knife under 3 inches, you can have this knife. And I do recommend it, especially if you're on a budget or if people borrow your knives often. This is the kind of knife I don't mind loaning out at all. If it comes back, it comes back. If it doesn't, no big deal. If it comes back broken, no big deal. I can get another one. It's $6 US dollars. I got distracted, didn't I? Blade thickness. I get distracted quite often. 2.43 millimeters, 0.096 inches. So, yeah, definitely less than 1/8 of an inch, but it doesn't need to be any thicker. It's a really good thickness for what you get. The blade depth, that's this dimension right here, 2.13 centimeters, 0.837 inches. The thickness of the edge behind the grind, 0.44 millimeters, that's 0.0175 inches. And on a hollow grind, that's awesome. You're going to get a really thin edge that has less than 0.5 millimeter behind the grind for a number of sharpenings. That's awesome. So the grind angle on this knife, and I measured it about 1 inch from the sharpener's choil, so just underneath the name right here, 20.4 degrees on this side and 24.2 degrees on this side. So not terrible, nothing to write home about either. The handle length is 9.6 centimeters, 3.78 inches. The grip area is about 3 inches, 7.6 centimeters, something like that. Well, it's hard to say exactly, right? Because you got curvy lines and stuff. So roughly 3-inch handle grip. The handle thickness is 6.35 millimeters, which is 1/4 of an inch exactly. Handle depth right here, 2.11 centimeters, 0.83 of an inch. When you close the knife, it is 2.45 centimeters, 0.963 of an inch, so less than 1 inch deep when it's in your pocket, and less than 4 inches long. Pretty good if you ask me. The total length when the blade is deployed is 16.54 centimeters, 6.5 inches almost exactly, very close to that. So I've gone over the price, I've gone over the size, the weight, and all these dimensions on it. What do I think of this knife? Well, I like the handle feel. Everything's got nicely rounded. The finish on this steel is smooth, but it's not slick, if you know what I mean. I like that you've got the spring relief cut here for the frame lock arm on the inside, because I like the outsides to be nice and smooth like this. If you do take the pocket clip off, You don't have a little dent that your finger runs across like it is on the SanRenMu versions. I think the buck versions are done the same way as this, and it's just the SanRenMu that has it done differently, but not sure. Anyhow, some people are going to say these are made in the same factory. There's no guarantees to that. There's enough very small differences that it's not the same knife. It's not the same handle punched through the same presses. You know, this little rest right here where you put your finger right above the screw, that's a different size, and it's a different radius of the cup here than from each other. The thickness of the knife, or the depth of the knife this way, it's different between one another. The placement of the holes is different. And so there is differences, definitely, and I think they're just made to copy the same knife and, you know, made in two separate occasions, two separate factories. I say that because Enlan tends to have a little less quality control than SanRenMu, sometimes a fair bit less quality control than SanRenMu. But for the price of this knife, I totally recommend it all day long because, you know, if you bought 10 of these, you'd get 9 that are pretty good. And that's pretty good odds when you're talking less than $6 US. I mean, you go to a gas station and you're not going to get a knife this good for $6 US. It's just not going to happen. Of course, there might be some exception that somebody knows about, and they're going to write down below in the comments and tell me all about it. Thank you ahead of time for that. So I like it. It's got a discreteness to it, how thin it is. It fits in the pocket well, comfortable in the hand. My hands are bordering on extra large. They're between large and extra large, and I find this knife easy to have a secure grip on. My pinky even gets some engagement on the gripness on the grip of it, and so I like that. You know, you can get a pinch grip for good control, finger up top, really good control. You know, irregular fist grip if you want to, and you know, more of a saber grip if you want to. You know, any which way you want to grab this knife. Even reverse grips work quite well. And it's just comfortable in hand, and I like the way it's made. Easy to sharpen. Fixed pivot pin. Now, that's a good thing. Now, the washers inside is phosphor bronze washers and Teflon washers, like black plasticky washers. And you've got pretty good action. It doesn't snap quite easily enough right from the factory, but it took very little lubrication to add to this to make it just snap when I want it to snap out. And that's without loosening it so much that there's any blade play. In fact, I didn't have to loosen it at all. I just had to add a little bit of lubrication. So this is a good knife. I like it. The only con that I really wish they'd change, and that happens to be with, you know, the competition as well. And I don't know about the bucks because I haven't grabbed a buck of this kind or seen it at any store. And that's the lockup. I wish the lockup was a little bit earlier so that the knife would last that much longer. There we go. If the lockup was like this from the factory, that's what I would like to see. And you can see like that, the inside edge here is less than halfway across the blade. But instead, if I just open it up and show you, this is where the lockup naturally ends up. And it's more like 70% or more like around 2/3 of the way across. That's not terrible, but I wish it was better. So that's this knife. Remember, GearBest sale. Check that out. I am an affiliate with GearBest. So if you use my links down below for GearBest, I do get a little bit of a credit out of that. That does help out this channel and helps this channel to continue to exist. Because oftentimes, like this knife, I bought it with my own cash, paid for everything, and you know, it's not cheap doing a YouTube channel, so it takes a little bit of help. So thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, watching the adverts at the beginning, at the end of the video. Whatever you guys do to help me out, I appreciate it very much. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. You guys are the very best of the bunch. Remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.